Well, so far in John's Gospel, the Apostle John has been shown as something of who Jesus is. We've seen that he is fully God, he is fully man, and we've seen just a glimpse of his generosity, the generosity of God, the Father, Son, and Spirit, in sending the Son to come and live amongst us, to experience the reality of what it is to be human, and then to die in our place, human for human, but one who is able to conquer Satan, sin, and death as God, for that is who he is. Jesus, the man who is fully God. We see his generosity in him coming and living amongst us. And John goes a step further this morning just to show us the extent of the generosity of God in sending Jesus to live amongst us. John says this in verse 15 and 16. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks before me, because he was before me. And from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ." So John the Baptist announces the coming of Jesus. He makes it really clear that this Jesus is far greater than he is. Like John the Baptist had a following, he had disciples, but Jesus, as he comes and he steps onto the scene, will far outweigh the greatness of John the Baptist. And we see the generosity of Jesus. We've already read and we saw last week that in Jesus is grace and truth. That is what he is full of. He's full of grace and truth. And we see this week, from that fullness, from the fullness of Jesus, a kind of overflowing grace and truth, we get to receive some of that. From his fullness, we have all received grace upon grace. That is written in other translations as grace in exchange for grace, or grace in place of grace. And the picture that John has given us as he writes that is that Jesus is full of grace and truth. Everything and anything that is within him is pure, is righteous, and is good. And that overflows towards his people. His fullness spills out and spills over. And because he is full of grace and truth, it is only grace and truth that spill out towards his people. And we get to receive that. Now, grace is different from mercy. Mercy is us not getting what we do deserve. We all deserve death and the wrath of God, eternally being poured out to us because of our sin. But God in his mercy, as you read in Ephesians chapter 2, God in his mercy withholds that wrath, pours it out on his Son instead. Grace is us receiving what we don't deserve. Not us not receiving what we do deserve, receiving what we don't deserve. And John is saying that comes to us constantly. That picture of grace upon grace, or grace in exchange for grace, is a picture you might think of a garden and water in a plant. And a plant needs water, and so the gardener pours out that water on the plant. And as soon as the plant has sucked up all that water and it needs some more, the gardener pours out more. And day after day, the gardener, if he's a good gardener, will attend to that plant and keep pouring out water and pouring out water for as long as it needs it. The picture that John has shown us here is that we receive grace from Jesus. The moment we are saved, we received grace. And every day after that, we receive more. When we use up our store of the riches that come towards us in the day, more will come to us. We can be guaranteed, we can be so confident that as we wake tomorrow morning, Jesus will give us more. He is full of grace and it spills out from him and pours out constantly, day after day, minute after minute, towards his people. And Jesus coming, what we receive from Jesus is so much better than what the Old Testament Israel would receive from the law. The law was beautiful. The law showed them how to live. It also showed them their need for something greater. And that something greater is Jesus. The law just exposed to them their sin and their brokenness and their need for a saviour. And Jesus comes as that saviour. And what pours out from him is not a constant reminder of our sin and brokenness. It is goodness. It is kindness. It is generosity. It is patience. It is forgiveness. It is a constant outpouring of love to his people day after day. Our God, folks, is a generous God. He gives us all that we need every day. Grace upon grace. Grace in exchange for grace. Grace flowing after grace after grace after grace. Know that today. Remember that today. Remember that this week. We have a generous God. Remember all that he has given us. Turn to him in worship and thanksgiving, but also see that he is given to you endlessly, constantly pouring out his goodness and kindness to you day after day. Our God is not distant. Our God is not far off. He's a generous God who has stepped in, lived a life like we have lived, suffered for us in our place, shown us mercy, and taken our sin, and constantly, day after day, pours out his goodness towards us. Let us fix our eyes on him this week. Give thanks to him for his grace that pours out towards us. And remember that he is a good God and a generous God towards his people.